The first question that people have is, what should my FIRE or financial independence number be? And there is a brilliant thumb rule to solve that. So in fact, the corpus growth tends to more than counteract the growth of expense, and so this formula actually gives a conservative output.
So by the time he had paid off his EMI loan, he started aggressively putting money into mutual funds.
We've had a fantastic bull run. I was just looking at the returns of just the Nifty in the past 10 and 20 years, and I got the figures of 13.5 CAGR in the last 10 years and 15% for the last 20 years. And that is way more than what we've assumed. Hello and welcome to Moneynomics with Mint. I am Neil Borate. I am a personal finance editor at Mint. And today we're going to be talking about a concept that is on most young people's minds in India, which is FIRE. Joining me is my colleague Sachin, and we're going to discuss both the calculations behind FIRE and the human stories behind FIRE. So in terms of calculation, the first question that people have is, what should my FIRE or financial independence number be? And there is a brilliant thumb rule to solve that, which is you simply multiply. Let's say you want to retire tomorrow, you simply multiply your current annual expense with the number of years that you think you will live. So if your current annual expense is 10 lakhs a year, and you have 50 years to live, then you have 5 crores as your FIRE number. Now, this might sound deceptively simple because it is not seeming to take into account inflation, the growth in expenses every year. But what happens in practice is that the corpus also grows every year, and the corpus grows on a higher base. So you get something like a 10-12% return on a 5 crore corpus, whereas the inflation and the expense is on a much smaller base. 10 lakhs a year is way, way smaller. So in fact, the corpus growth tends to more than counteract the growth of expense, and so this formula actually gives a conservative output. So let's illustrate this with an example. So let's say that you have an expense of 24 lakhs a year, like 2 lakhs a month. Now, if you take 8% as your inflation rate, and if you take 10% as the corpus growth rate, both very conservative assumptions. Inflation tends to be in the 4 to 6% range. We've taken 8 just to take into account lifestyle inflation. And again, 10% is a very conservative portfolio growth number. You need, if you run the calculations for a 60-year lifespan, you need a corpus of 8 crores. Now, if you apply the same thumb rule that we just discussed, the answer it gives you is higher at 12 crores. So it's a conservative formula to use. But too much about numbers. Let's, Sachin, discuss the human stories around FIRE, because life is a lot messier than an Excel sheet. In your interactions with people who are actually living financial independence, retire early, what's happening? How are they doing it?
So Neil, interestingly, luck plays a major role in this. So yesterday I was talking to someone, and when he was around 30, 35, 40, he went through a divorce. And in that divorce, he had to pay a part of his assets in the form of a property to his wife. Still, he was able to achieve his FIRE number by the time he was in late 40s. And the major reason he could achieve that was because he had an extreme good run in his career. So by the time he was shifting from his one job, he was getting all the ESOPs, and from the next company, he was getting a signing bonus. That way, he repaid all the housing loan EMIs early on, and then he was able to invest a huge chunk of his corpus into just mutual funds. So by the time he had paid off his EMI loan, he started aggressively putting money into mutual funds. And
Right.
yeah.
So let's break it down, Sachin. I mean, the first thing that he had going for him is his career. So as we discussed earlier, he's in pharma sales.
Yes.
And he was able to switch jobs at different points, but most of the companies where he worked did give him ESOPs that he was able to
Yes.
eventually encash. And when he did switch, he also got signing bonuses
Yes.
in the new companies. So he really played the corporate game. And the second thing that he had going for him is he began investing early, although in real estate at first, right? I mean, his first big purchases were
Yes.
houses.
Also in mutual funds, but he couldn't invest a huge amount when he first started in the 2000s.
Yeah.
Invested a small amount.
Yeah, correct. So he began with real estate, but real estate was still booming, and he would tend to buy outside the main city,
Yes,
right? Outside
yes,
Mumbai.
yes.
And so those flats also rose in value.
Some
Consider
property went up 3x in value. That
Yeah,
also really helped when he sold and tried buying a bigger property. That played a huge role.
correct. And so that more than offset the lifestyle challenges that he faced, which for most of which was his divorce. And therefore now he's built a corpus of 5 crores, right?
Yes,
He's in his 50s, early 50s or late 40s.
yes,
Um, and his annual expenses are, as we discussed earlier, 14 lakhs, 1 4.
yes, yes, about that. Plus, Neil, I think we
Mhm.
haven't mentioned this, but he has quit his job and he's doing his own consultancy, started his own partnership and all,
Right.
which,
So
yeah,
he's not quit work exactly. He's just quit full time.
full time corporate role.
Right. Right. So he has that cushion of the consulting income also. But if I were to just quickly do the math, he has a 14 lakhs of annual income,
Mhm.
and let's say that he has 30 years to live. So, oh no, 30 is a bit too, because if he's in his early 40s, then maybe 40 years to live, right? 80, 85 is an expected
Yes,
lifespan.
can go more,
Yeah,
can go
can
down.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So you have to assume a
Yes,
average. So by my calculation, by the rule of thumb, 40 multiplied by 14, 5.6 crores is
mm,
the corpus he should have, and he has
yeah,
five, so he's in the
yes,
ballpark of
yes.
where he should be. Any other experiences or conversations come to your mind, Sachin?
So Neil, interestingly, I remember some more conversation I had. All of them had successful careers, but many people who achieve this fire, interestingly, are from people who work outside India.
Hmm.
So there is this one guy in the Gulf who was working there as the director or in a big role of a corporate company.
Hmm.
So there was a time when his company was laying off a lot of people.
Hmm.
Economy was not doing well, and this big company decided to lay off the entire
Hmm.
division in the Gulf where he was working.
Hmm.
But by that time, he had accumulated so much money
Hmm.
because of the currency differences. They don't even have to pay tax there.
Hmm.
So he was telling me that he was thinking whether I should start looking for a new job or whether I
Hmm.
should just do farming or something. So he
Hmm.
actually bought a farm, and now he is farming.
So yeah, so that's another route a lot of people take. They go abroad, they work for a while, and they come back to India, and they like arbitrage the difference between currencies, etc. Now, one very useful tool in the FIRE journey is SWPs, systematic withdrawal plans. The reason why it's a very elegant tool is because you can take a regular income. You can set up an SWP for a fixed amount. So if you have that 5 crore corpus and you want to start with, let's say, a 1.5 lakh withdrawal a month, you can just set up an SWP, and each withdrawal is treated as part income and part capital gain. So as it is, the taxation on equity funds is just 12.5%. Over and above that, whatever amount you withdraw, let's say you withdraw 1.5 lakhs, it's not that whole amount is not taxed at 1.5%. Only a part of it is. So the effective tax rate can drop to 4 5%. That's it. And that way you can really structure your finances very, very elegantly, very efficiently. These are multi-decade things. So we've had a fantastic bull run. I was just looking at the returns of just the Nifty in the past 10 and 20 years, and I got the figures of 13.5 kgr in the last 10 years and 15.15% for the last 20 years. And that is way more than what we've assumed here. We've assumed a 10% return, because obviously in FIRE you need to put some money in debt. You can't entirely depend on the market. So the rate of return you have to assume has to be a weighted average between the equity return and the debt return. Now you have a long time horizon, so you can be quite skewed towards equity, but still it's probably not fair to assume a 15% return. So all of this makes the calculation tricky, and if you get it even slightly wrong, over 3 4 decades, even a half a percentage point mistake
Yeah.
can mean that you don't have enough money when you're 75, when you're most vulnerable. Which is why the need for good advice comes in, and therefore you should speak to a SEBI registered investment advisor. Any final thoughts, Sachin, from your conversations that people should take into account?
So Neil, one last thing I wanted to add was a lot of people also have different ways of taking money out of the corpus. So I think we did a story which is about Naveen Fernandez. He's a very respected finance professional who is unfortunately suffering with stage 4 cancer now. His idea of investing for his retirement, and when he passes away, the corpus left for his wife, he did not invest a huge chunk into equities. He invested a huge chunk into corporate bonds.
Yes,
He has
yes.
about 2 crores, and
In
interest from
corporate
that he plans
bonds.
to
Yeah, yeah.
give. So, a lot of people have different, combinations and
Yes,
interesting
yes,
stuff
yes,
here.
that's true. That's true. I mean, not everyone wants to take the risk of equity, and
Yes.
he's perfectly happy with the yield that he's getting. So, and he's provided for his retirement. I mean,
Yes.
he's built a good corpus. All right, Sachin, great having you. Thank you very much.